Hey everybody, this is Craig Garber. Welcome to Everyone Loves Guitar, and I've been so looking forward to talking with Beth Hart. Number one, because she's one of my favorite singers. She's incredibly talented. I mean, when she sings, she's like soul sister, man. She's leaving it. I mean, she's like, you can't accuse her of not giving 110%, whether you're listening to her perform live or on a record. I mean, she's awesome, and she's super interesting as a human being, and she had me peeing in my pants a minute ago. I actually am not going to look at her for like a minute or two because I need to recover. Anyway, let me give you a quick thumbnail sketch of Beth. I want to thank our mutual friend John Bleischer for hooking this up. John, thank you very much. Beth Hart's artist, pianist, guitarist, songwriter. She's got, as I said, one of the most passionate voices I've heard. She's written and sang with artists including Slash, Toots Thielemans, Deep Purple, Eric Gales, Buddy Guy, and Jeff Beck, who she's also toured with, both as an opening act and joining Jeff Beck on stage several times. She's done 3 albums, LPs, that's my age. She's done 3 albums with Joe Bonamassa, and she's put out a tremendous body of her own solo work, 10 studio albums since 1993, including her most recent, a tribute to Led Zeppelin. 6 of her albums hit #1 on the Billboard Blues Charts, and she's had tracks placed in TV and movies. She's extremely talented. One of the things, one of the many things I admire about you is your work ethic, man. Because to me, you learn a lot about, people that work hard are generally really good people. Lazy people, maybe not so much. But when it comes to singers and songwriters, you are the real deal. So let's get into this, and thank you so much for your time. I appreciate it.
Thank you. Wow, that's a really nice interjection, man. I usually wake up feeling pretty bad about myself, but you just made me feel pretty good. I wonder how long that's gonna last.
It's gonna last until this is over, at least. I'm telling you, man. Between that and your coffee, we're on a track. All right.
Yeah, man, Death Wish coffee, baby. All right.
So, tell me how you first got your career started, and what were some of the challenges early on as far as getting things moving?
I first started playing really young and writing young. So at 4, I did my first recital, and then I was a cellist for years as well as piano. I wanted to study opera, so I started studying that at 13 until my opera coach said, yo, you keep doing your own thing to this classical music. You can't do that. You're out of here. So that's when I started putting lyrics to music, because up until then, I'd just written music. And then I got with another coach, Bob Korf, when I was 16, and I was going to high school performing arts where I met my best friend, Ron. But I got kicked out, I went to 16 different schools, and I only made it to the middle of the 11th grade. So I definitely didn't fit in very well in school. But I started singing down in South Central as a teenager, because we would hit these chitlin circuits. And in these chitlin circuits that we would do, we would have one song and give the sheet music to the band. And then if the audience liked you, they'd come up in a line and give you dollar bills. If they didn't like you, they'd kick you out of the club. But you could come back the next week, and you could hit like 3 or 4 of those each night.
Okay.
And it was the bomb. But up in Hollywood, you had to pay to play, and I didn't have any kind of following or anything like that, and I didn't have any money. So that's really where I was starting. And then I did the show called Star Search, which, thank God, was on at midnight on cable back when no one had.
Was that with Ed McMahon?
It was.
Holy shit, I remember that, yeah.
And it was like, and that was like, back then, it was considered like the most uncool, dangerous thing to do. But my buddy Ron paid me $50 to audition, and I had no money, right? So I went and did it as a joke. And then I got it, and then I said, I don't want to do it. And then the producers called me in, and they said, listen, you're young. Our show's failing. We're on at midnight on Sundays on cable. We need someone young to kind of beef up the show. What do you want? And so I said, I want my own producer. I want to be able to dress. I want to dress. And then I want to be able to do my own music. And then if I want to make a cover, do a cover. So we kind of had a negotiation, went out and did the show, loved doing the show. But I'm such a pain in the butt. I had a plan that if I won, which I never thought I'd even get past the first round, but if I won, that I would say on stage, I don't want it. Like, just stupid
Oh,
shit
my
like
God.
That. But then when I won it, I was like, man, I'm taking this $100,000. Hell.
Good for you.
I had that, but I couldn't get a deal. And I was struggling to get a deal, but I didn't know at the time my manager was having meetings with labels, and the labels wanted to sign me, but his condition was he had to produce me, and he wasn't telling me that. So I wasn't getting a deal. So I ended up playing on the street, busking.
Yeah.
And then I met who'd become my manager now for 27 years, David. He saw me there. And then within a month, he had me signed to a 3-way right to Atlantic. and that was Atlantic Records, 143 Records, and Lava Records. And that's when I began, like, you know, a real record and a real tour. But I had toured prior to that with an indie record I made. But that was like my first real signing.
Holy shit.
Yeah.
How are you about, so suddenly you had like bosses and like you had a certain agenda that you had to follow. How did that work for you being such a rebel and a maverick?
Well, I knew that I'm so tunnel visioned. There's no one who can talk me into anything. And it's not that I'm out to not make friends, but if someone tries to muscle me, I think, and this is where it comes from being raised in a bail bond family. So like everyone in my family are bail bondsmen, all of them.
Holy shit.
The only one that didn't get a bail license was Susan, but my sister Sharon, who passed, is a bail bondsman. My brother's still a bail bondsman. My mother's a bail bondsman. My father's a bail bondsman, and then other people in the family. So coming up in that family, you know, you learn and watch, you know, how focused and then how hard you got to work and strong you got to be. So you get what you settle for.
Right.
So if you're worried about everybody being your friend in this business, people will roll over you. So it's not about being an asshole, but it is about letting someone else know if they're being an asshole, calling them out on their shit. So I remember when I got with Atlantic, I was doing really hard rock music. And that was the vibe we were going for. And they wanted to release a song that they thought would have been an instant hit called God Bless You. And at the time, there was Blues Traveler that had a really big hit, and it was similar to that song. And I said, I don't want to be pigeonholed as a pop artist. I don't want that. So like they released another song, of course, that wasn't a hit, and the record didn't do well, but well enough for us to like tour Africa and the East Coast of the United States. And that
so
was
your
really
first
big.
tour, you would tour in Africa and the East Coast. That's really cool.
Yeah, and then we did Lollapalooza. We did half Lollapalooza, half the country, and that was really fun. But my band and I, we didn't get along, and we were literally like physically abusive with each other, and it was awful. Like I was having full blown out physical fights with my guitar player, so it wasn't going so well. Yeah. And then after that, I got another record to do, and this time me and my bass player, I put my foot down because they had a pop producer do most of the record, and it sounded just like Madonna's Real Light. And I'm like, I can't do that. I'm not going to do that. So I said, either you let me out of the deal or you let me produce this with my bass player. And my manager was like, you're crazy. Who do you think you are? And I said, I don't think I'm anybody special, but I don't want to get pigeonholed. I don't want to go down pop lane, because if I do, that's it. I'm stuck in that thing. So then we produced the record. We had a hit, and I saw it going in a direction that I didn't like. And so I started heavily self-destructing. And I know it was for two reasons. One, I think it was my FU to my childhood and family.
Right.
And then the other was I didn't want to get pigeonholed. Also, my dad did the same thing. He built an amazing business. He was doing some squirrely shit, but then he went to prison and he lost everything. And then when he got out of prison, he lost his license. So he married a woman who got a license for him, and he rebuilt his business. So I think I kind of inherited that thing too, of like building a big Lego set and then like kicking it down.
Right.
Yeah. So after that, nobody would really touch me except for New Zealand, Warner's, Holland, Warner's, Sony, Denmark. And that was it. And a minor label called Koch in the States. And it stayed that way for like 6, 7, 8 years. I mean, that's the only places I toured. That was the only work I did. I've been dropped by Atlantic, and it was good for me. It was humbling. It forced me to get sober. It helped me to like learn how to do the business slow and gently, because I got some issues from growing up as a kid. So I get triggered really easy. I don't trust people. So I needed to kind of slowly, instead of like shooting off like what was happening with Atlantic. And that was a blessing. You know, the way all that turned out, even though I felt so ashamed for so long, it was one of the best things that could have happened to me. It saved my life. I think if I had succeeded on the Screaming for My Supper record, I would have died. Like Amy Winehouse, I would have just died. I wouldn't have made it. Yeah.
I want to ask you something about, you said, and if you're not comfortable talking about it, that's totally cool. You said, I don't trust people because I have issues from my childhood. I 100% get that. I'm the same way. Yeah. And the thing is, you have, when you have a childhood like that, you have these survival skills that you need to have to get through. But the thing is, then when you leave that environment, nobody comes to you and says, hey, guess what? Not everybody wants to fucking screw you over. You can drop those things. So you just take those things into, is that what, because that's what it was like with me. And was that sort of like, you just take that into the rest of your life?
Yeah. And the thing that really saved me were two things. I happened to meet a man, finally, the first man that didn't physically and verbally abuse me and wasn't a full-blown addict. And those are the only kind of guys I was attracted to. And I had this man come into my life that wasn't like that. So that saved me, one, and stayed. Right. And I'd be like, dude, why the hell do you want to be with, there's something wrong with you. He asked me to marry him in rehab, and he stayed with me all these years. But also I met a trauma specialist who heard about my case, because he's a group trauma specialist. He doesn't normally take on one-on-ones, but he heard about my case because I was taking so much Klonopin, and he didn't understand, he and this other psychiatrist didn't understand how I was able to work and take that amount of Klonopin. So it was like they took on a steady case. Well, I ended up forging a script to get Klonopin from that psychiatrist, so he dropped me. But that trauma specialist stayed with me, and he still works with me to this day. So since I was 28 and I'm 50 now, wow. That dude has helped me so much. He's helped me a lot to learn how to, even though I don't trust people, just like you were saying, it doesn't mean they're all out to get me. So just surround yourself with people that are not narcissistic. Call your own shit out. If you're narcissistic, work on it. Be willing to face it. I did 12-step for a lot of years. I don't do that anymore now. I do church, and I do my trauma specialist. And then amongst other things like natural therapies that help me a lot. I also do mushroom therapy, which was huge for chronic PTSD. And what that has done, I just started a year and a half ago because I've been on antipsychotics for the last 15 years. And antipsychotics can be really damaging to your organs. Yeah. And they were damaging mine. So I had to get off of it before I got tardive dyskinesia. And I was just waiting for the tardive dyskinesia. It was coming. I could see the shaking happening. And once that becomes permanent, you're done. I wouldn't play piano anymore. I wouldn't be able to do anything anymore. Wow. So I had to get off that really gently. And then my trauma specialist suggested psychedelic mushroom therapy. And that's a game changer. That has changed everything for me there.
You definitely sound like you're a lot happier than you were. So whatever you're doing is working, because that's really the barometer is like, how are you happy?
Right. And how are you treating others? Right. Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah. How are you treating yourself? Are you happy? And then how do you treat others? Yeah. Really.
And I don't expect to be happy all the time. Of course not, right? We're here to learn and struggle, but it's when I'm unhappy, how I handle it. Am I going to be abusive to myself? Am I going to be abusive to others? And if I'm doing that, that's just not wellness at all. No. You know? So,
That's cool. Thank you for sharing that. I appreciate it.
Yeah.
I want to talk to you. I have so much to talk about. Let's talk about some of my favorite Beth Hart songs. So, Am I the One? That's just, I'm sorry. I know like I'm sorry.
No, I love that song.
It's like, fuck, that's so powerful. That was on your first record, Beth Hart and the Ocean of Soul. And it was a good song then, but you redid it on Immortal, which was your next record. And I thought, it really took it over the top. The mix was great. The slightly different arrangement. And man, you just crushed it. I was curious. Tell me about that track and how did you know I need to redo that?
Okay. So it happened. I swear to God, this is what happened. Atlantic had us out on like a little tiny showcase tour. So we were up at Sundance Film Festival.
Oh, cool.
And we were playing for some of the film people at a club. And we played that song, and it naturally went into that whole end part where we go out, and it goes into all that, and all that kind of stuff. And that just all happened naturally. And we were like, dude, when we go to record this record, that's how we got to do it. And so it just happened at that show. So we just did what we did at that show.
That's awesome. I mean, it's like I said, it was a great song, but like the second version was like, it was the explosion.
Band. It was the band I was with, man. Sergio Gonzalez, unbelievable drummer. Bass, Tal Erzberg, unbelievable bass player. Jimmy Corey killed it as well.
Yeah, he did a great job.
you are what you surround yourself with, right? So you
Yeah,
surround yourself with people that are better than you, and you get better. So
totally.
yeah, they were great.
37 days. I don't usually ask questions about titles, like almost never, but
Yeah,
like you called it 37 days, not 38
yeah,
days, not 36
yeah,
days. So like,
yeah.
if you're comfortable, what's the significance?
It's just because that was the length of time it took to make it, and
Oh, okay.
at that time, up until then, to me, that was a short amount of time. Because before that, whenever I would make a record, it would take for freaking ever. So this time it was like that seemed short to me. So I was like, I liked that number too. So I was like, and then like if you break it down in numerology, it's a 1. So a 1 is a pretty powerful number. But like I don't know, there was something about that. It's cool. It took 37 days, but then like the records that I make now, with the last several producers I've worked with, are all like 3 to 4 to 5 days, and then mix over a period of 2 weeks, and it's
Right.
done. And then now I'm working with Rob Cavallo a lot, and he takes a lot longer, like old school days.
Okay.
And but he's amazing, and it's worth it, you know. But yeah, that's why we named it that.
Okay.
Yeah.
No Place Like Home from Fire on the Floor. And that
Yeah.
is such a pretty and a really sad song.
Yeah.
I want to hang up some pretty things from my suitcase full of dreams. You're a great, lyricist.
Thanks,
What's the
man.
backstory? You're welcome. Thank you. What's the backstory to that song?
So sometimes when I'm writing, this is what I love about, to me, the spirituality of writing is I don't even know what's going on. I'm just showing up to the piano, to me, which as a child always represented the hand of God. So it's a place where you can sit and it's protecting you. It's a big mother frickin' shotgun for anybody who's going to come near you. And then when you're sitting in front of the keys, it's like the fingertips of God saying, man, I got you. So whatever you need and whatever you're seeking, I'm going to help you through this.
So you're safe there.
I'm really safe there.
Oh.
So there's a lot of times when I'll go to write, I won't even know what's going on. And then I'll think I know what it is. And then later, this is what I love about songs. Later, just like life experiences, you'll have an experience, you'll think this is what it meant. And then as you age, you get to see different sides of that experience, different perspectives. And so you're constantly learning from that one experience over time. And the songs are the same way to me. So what was interesting to me about No Place Like Home is when I was writing it, when I finished it, I thought it was just about me missing home and being on the road too much. Then I thought maybe it had a correlation also with the recovery of addiction and mental struggles, right? But then I finally realized it's really about trusting that someday I'm going home to where God is, meaning maybe I'm reincarnated, maybe, I get to graduate to another place where I'm more giving for the universe instead of so taking. But it's like I'll keep trudging up the road, but someday I'll be going home. And it wasn't until I hit that one night in a show that I got choked up, and I realized that's really what you're hoping for. That's what home is to you. It's just being accepted into the hands of God, of Him saying, "You're not that bad, kid, after all."
That's cool. That's nice that you came to that. That you had that like sense of peace with that.
Yeah.
Woman Down from War in My Mind. That's an amazing song, incredibly emotional. I mean, great piano chords. Like you have this droning thing throughout the track. It's really good. And All That I Had is all that he stole, all of the hopes, all the dreams. That's pretty intense. I assume that's about a bad relationship.
It's about rape. It's about child rape. Yeah.
Oh my God.
So I had this piece of crap, Dane Keller, motherfucker. I've looked for him online too. I think he's dead. I hope he's dead. But I was 12 and he was 38. And I was in a relationship with him for like 6 months. I was crazy in love with him. And I remember my last day when he was through with me, he had like a paper bag, like you put like fruit in, like avocados in, to ripen, like just like a kitchen paper bag. And it was full of $50 in ones. And I was on the kitchen floor begging him to not leave me because my dad had already left. When my dad went to prison and he got out, my dad never talked to me again till way later into his life. So now I'm back in my dad's life. But my dad was my life. And so when your dad leaves at 7 and he was all you were with, of course, as a young girl, you're going to seek out any attention you can get from anyone older. So he wasn't my first sexual relationship, but he was like an older man. And it was like, I felt loved. And then he threw that bag of money at me, and he just said, "Get out of here, whore." So that motherfucker, and I never talked about it. I breezed over it in therapy, and I'd always been in therapy. Like when I went to school as a kid, they made me do an hour a day at every school I was at with a counselor, because clearly I had issues. And then I've always been in therapy as an adult as well. I had to, or I would have been dead. I had to have people help me navigate. And I never addressed it in any songwriting until the last couple of years. And I don't really know quite why. I don't know if it was the women's movement when women started coming out and talking about, and it maybe made me feel safe enough to talk about it. But like at the shows, I won't say what I just said to you, because I think I can't use the audience as my therapist. So I have to be careful with certain things. So once or twice I talked about it before the song, and then I could feel the energy of the room get too heavy. And so I said, that's not fair to the audience. So I stopped doing that. So now when I play it, I play it with Tommy on upright bass, and I play it on piano, and that's it. No band on that, but I don't talk about it. I just sing it.
Wow. That's heavy, man. I just met you, but I just want to tell you that I hope you give yourself the pat on the back you deserve, because you're a pretty strong person, because to get through all that shit. And I know when you have a rough upbringing, it's really hard to give yourself credit. I know how tough that is. But man, you're a super strong person.
Thank you, man. I got to give up a lot of credit, though, to having a lot of good people also in my life. I had a lot of scumbag motherfrickers growing up, and I myself have been a scumbag plenty of times. But I do have, and have had for many years, a lot of good people, too. So I've had a lot of help. And I've gotten to make a living making music, which has helped me to be able to afford really good therapy. So, you know what I mean? As hard as things have been, I've had it that much better. Sure. And that's not me just trying to be grateful and positive. That's just the truth.
No, that's the truth. Yeah. Of course. Yeah. Thank you. That was very kind of you to share that. And I'm so sorry. Me apologizing that you had an experience I can't convey.
I appreciate that. Thank you. I think it's important that we have compassion, though, not only for people that are victims of that stuff, but also have compassion for predators. Because can you imagine being born where all you can think about is doing stuff like that to people? And that's got to be hell. Or being born with psychopathy, where you don't feel anything. You have no nervous system. I mean, it's important to have compassion for both the victim and the perpetrator. I really do think it is. And not to be a good person, but just to be awake. Yeah. These are illnesses. This isn't evil. This is illness.
Well, you're better than me, because I'm not there yet where I could have compassion for situations like that.
But I don't. But hey, I am right now, probably because I had Death Wish coffee today. So I'm really good.
Maybe I need to
freaking kill that motherfucker.
Beth? What are the top 3? Thank you again for sharing that. That was really fucking brave. Thank you. What are the top 3 musical experiences you've had?
Oh God, top 3. Probably Kennedy Center with Jeff, getting to perform for Buddy Guy. And the experience of that wasn't the actual performance. The experience of that, it was a 3-day event. The experience, which was the dopest for me, was when the show was over and I had to get into the elevator to go upstairs to change for an evening gala that they had after. Yo-Yo Ma was in, and I went to see, and I was a cellist.
And you're a cellist, yeah.
Yeah. So I remember seeing him at the Hollywood Bowl when I was like 11. And dude, he's in the elevator. He makes eye contact with me. He just seen our show or our performance. And then he comes up to me. He puts his arms around me and he rocks me back and forth. You know how weird artists are, right? He rocks me back and forth and he makes baby noises. He's like, goo, 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 goo. That's it. And then he walked away. That was it. And I was just like, man, that has got to be one of the top. Live at the Paradiso, that was one of my favorite experiences because it was right after my whole crash with addiction. And I think I was right about 6 months sober for the first time since I was like 11.
How was that playing? Like, was it a lot of times guests come on the show and one of the things they say was, and I apologize for cutting you off, when
No.
they get the first time on stage is like, holy fuck, I'm not high. How was that?
Well, no, that wasn't it. Most of the time, whenever I've worked, even through my addiction, I wouldn't use to perform. The only time I would ever use or write, the only time I would do that was extremely rare. And then the only time I ever would perform high was during Screaming for My Supper for that 1 year. And that was it. Okay. So I wasn't used to being high and playing. That was something I just didn't do. It would be when I wasn't playing or having a bad day. I was more of what you call a periodic addict. Okay. So I wasn't a daily addict because I used other things to numb, like starving and vomiting and cutting. So I didn't always have to use drugs or alcohol. I had other means of numbing out.
Right.
So I would do that when I had to work.
Okay.
Yeah.
I'm sorry. You said Live at the Paradiso, 6 months sober. What made it so cool?
It was cool to be healthy. It was cool to be married to a good man. It was cool to have a band for the first time that were genuinely down to earth and loved each other and were friends. It was cool to be playing for me at that time. That was quite a large audience, and them all coming and knowing we were filming it. And we'd, had the money to film it. And it just felt, I don't know, I felt like I'd grown a lot as an artist and as a performer, even though I was like only in my early 30s, still I felt like I'd come a long way. And I'd survived addiction, and my sister Sharon, even though it wasn't, in my mind, it was addiction that killed Sharon, but really it was AIDS. That's what ultimately took her out, but she couldn't stop using. And she had such a strong body and immune system that I think she would have been one of those ones that would have been able to hold on. But when AZT came out, that was it. That, fully took her out. But she had HIV for 10 years before she died.
Right.
So, and she'd been full blown off and on during that time before they had any medicine. So to me, it was like, I felt a lot of guilt that I'd survived my sister. I was 10 years younger than her. So I was 22 when she died, but then here I was 32 doing Paradiso, and I hadn't died, and I didn't feel for the first time ashamed about it. I wasn't crying so much like, that survivor's guilt.
Yeah.
I just felt like she had my back, she was with me, and it was a celebratory time. Yeah.
That's nice. And what would be number 3? Kennedy Center, Live at the Paradiso, what would be number 3?
Maybe this last tour.
Oh, that's cool. What was so cool about it?
So this last tour, I think it has to do with, I got so angry at my own country during pandemic. The leaders of our country during pandemic, who I'm not going to mention the name, and the different leaders around the world and how they handled pandemic also, which was disgusting to me. All the conspiracy stuff, both sides, left and right, conspiracy stuff. But it was particularly the marching for equality, both the peaceful marches and the aggressive marches, and so many people putting them away for it. So I got really, really angry, and it just made me not want to tour here anymore. And it also made me scared to tour here. So I had told David, I don't want to tour here ever again. And then I told David the night before we were going to leave, cancel it. I don't want to do it. I'm afraid of putting my band and crew in peril of getting COVID and someone dying just because we're going to make money, and I wouldn't be able to live with myself. And also with all the gun violence and all that stuff, I was just like, I can't do it. I can't do it. And then my husband laid me down on the ground, had me lay on top of him, and he cried. And he said, I have to work. I have no outlet. And you have an outlet. You get to record here. You get to write here. He goes, I have nothing. There's only so many miles I can ride on my motorcycle and fix stuff around the house. And so when he did that, I went, all right, let's go. And I had a meeting with my band, and I said, you guys, I want you to be really careful. I don't want you going anywhere. I want us to stay together. When we get out there, and every audience member that we played for Every liquor store we'd go by, every restaurant we'd go by, every person we walked by the street in every city we hit was awesome. And I remember calling my father, who's a really far right winger, right? And I love my father. He's a badass motherfucker. And I'm a left winger, right? So I called my father and I go, Dad, I love my country. I have fallen in love with the United States. I know we got a long way to go. We got a lot to learn. We're a young country. I'm giving us a break. But I love my country. I love the people here. And my dad was like, I'm really glad to hear that, kid. Good. So it was that made that tour so incredible, to fall back in love with a country that I was very resentful at, and resentful at myself. I'm an American too, man. I vote. I know what I'm doing, right? So I'm just as responsible, so it wasn't just hating the States, it was hating myself, and like thinking about like becoming a citizen of somewhere else. And here I am touring this country going, man, this place is freaking awesome. And just because, we lose our way and we've got some history of doing some terrible shit, it doesn't make us worthless. But it does. We got a lot of good people here. And I'd forgotten that. Yeah.
How did you, going back to Jeff Beck, how did you first hook up with Beck, and what was that experience like in general?
Yeah, so it's kind of an interesting story. Jason Flom, who became CEO of Atlantic, but he originally signed me to his label, Lava, and then I was signed directly to Atlantic and then 143. Well, when he took over Atlantic and I got dropped, he was going to re-sign me, but there was a $2 million debt, and he couldn't get his way around it. So he helped me out with a couple of things. He gave me a lot of money under the table so I could leave the light on. And then he threw me a bone with a guy named Alan Callan, who knew Zeppelin, and he knew Jeff Beck. So he first hooked me up with Jimmy Page. Jimmy Page's wife saw my Live at the Paradiso. She didn't like the way I looked, and she said, "You're never working with her."
Are you serious?
That's the truth. Hey, let's just call it like it is.
Oh my!
Yeah. And if he was still married to the motherfucker, I wouldn't tell you the story. But he's not. So I can tell you the story.
God, that is
so. We moved on.
That's like, oh my God, what a guy would never say. That's like where the women, the line with women. I don't like the way she's too good looking for you to be touring with her. No, that's so funny.
I don't think I'm not good looking. I look like I can fuck, and I think that she was like, no way, it's never gonna work, no way.
Oh my God.
We moved on from that, and then we got a hookup with Jeff Beck only because Alan Callan had Jeff Beck hear my cover of Billie Holiday's I Got a Right to Sing the Blues on a record I did with Toots Thielemans. And when he heard that, he asked me to write with him. So I didn't even really know who Jeff Beck was.
Wow.
I didn't know that growing up as a kid. My brother was playing a lot of his music because my brother had a wide vocabulary, so he played everything. But my brother basically just saturated me with tons of reggae, right? But otherwise, I would hear like Jeff Beck, I'd hear punk rock, I'd hear different stuff my brother was playing, but I didn't know really who the names were.
Yeah.
But it was my husband and Wolf, my manager, and my husband, Scott, that were freaking out. And I'm like, I'm so glad that I didn't know who Jeff Beck was, because I would have been freaking out, right? Because I get really starstruck. Yeah, so we just had a writing session. And in the writing session, I went, oh my God, this dude is psycho talented. I got so nervous. And then he saw Live at the Paradiso. So he called me after the writing session, like a month later. And he said, I just saw you sing Whole Lotta Love. He goes, I want you to be my singer. I'm going to do a tour of the U.S. and I want you to do it. Will you do it? And I'm like, frick, yeah.
Holy crap.
Yeah, that's how that happened. And how I met Slash was because Slash came to one of those Jeff Beck shows. And then he called me to do that writing thing with that Mother Maria song.
That is so cool. What a good story.
Isn't that a trip how that all kind of interconnected like that?
Yes, it's totally a trip. And I have heard Jason Flom's name on this show spoken so nicely 20 times.
Dude, that is a good dude right there, man. He helps so many people. He doesn't just have a real soft spot for people with addiction, but he also has a thing with Bill Clinton, President Bill Clinton, for years now, where they get together and women that have been tricked by their drug dealing, smuggling boyfriends who pack up their bags with tons of freaking drugs, and these women genuinely didn't know, and they get arrested and put in prison for that. They get them out.
Wow.
They get them pardoned. Yeah, they get him out.
Holy
He's a great dude. He's a really good dude.
And how did you hook up with the guys in Deep Purple? You're the only backup singer I think they've ever had.
That was because of Michael Bradford, who's also a hookup from Jason Flom.
Yeah, the producer, the guitarist, everything. Yeah.
Yep. And he was producing a record of mine called Leave the Light On, and his next project was producing Deep Purple. So he asked me, he played some of the stuff that he did of me for the Leave the Light On, right, for Deep Purple. And they said, sure, bring her in and have her do a little background singing or whatever. And then I came in and got to do it. And then they played the Wiltern and asked me if I'd sit in with them.
Oh,
and they gave me a tambourine, and I didn't know how to play the tambourine. I almost broke my hand. I was playing so hard. I mean, I couldn't use my hand for like 3 weeks afterwards. But it was so fun. It was so fun.
Those guys, I had Steve and Ian on the show. When I had Ian on, it was like I was 12 years old. I couldn't believe I was talking to Ian Pace. I was like,
could you believe it? Isn't that crazy?
He was so nice and just such a lovely guy, very smart guy too, well read. Yeah, wow. It's so cool. I'm glad you got to do those gigs.
Yeah, man.
Tell me, what are some things you did or some moves that you made that as you look back over your career or over your life, you would attribute your success to those things?
To me, the definition of success, honest to God, is it's two things. It's finding someone that you genuinely love, that loves you back. Just someone. It doesn't have to be a bunch of people. One is all you need. And the other is finding something you love to do. So whether you're making money off of it or whether you're not making money off of it, if it's something you get to wake up and you're excited to do, that is the definition of success, period. Because it's joy, it's happiness. And if you end up, being able to buy a fancy home off of it, or you're able to help out your mama and get something for her or a friend through doing it, well, great. But if none of those things happen and you just get to wake up and you're passionate about something, that's success to me. You know
what? That's only the second time I've ever heard that. It's the first time I've ever heard someone say that, but there's a book by a guy named Earl Nightingale who had a self-development firm, Nightingale Conant. And in his book, he talks about that, and he talks about exactly what you said. The definition of success is doing something you like, whether you're a school teacher or if you're a stay-at-home mom, and that's what you love doing.
That's it.
Yeah,
That's
and
it.
I really agree with that 100%. You're the first person I've heard say that. That's very
cool.
Like
my gardener Moises, who's so badass, this guy, right? He's 76 now. I watched this dude jump on top of our fence and then jump into the next door neighbor's tree to trim the top off. He can hardly speak English, but yet he and I know each other's life stories because we always have coffee together. He's been working with me and Scott since Scott and I first got married. So I was 29. And then when we finally bought our new house, he came over here. This dude, that to me Moises is successful, man. He loves what he does. He's healthy, He's strong, he's older, and he's just an awesome dude. And so that to me is success. Like this guy I call my little brother Bobby, right? He comes from major trauma, horrible. And my best friend Ron, who I met in high school, he found him homeless on the street and he took him in when he was 19. Now Bobby's 24. So Bobby doesn't trust people at all. You can't when you come from that kind of childhood. And he also could keep food down. So it's not anorexia, it's that he literally can't keep it down. So he's come a long way, but he plays video games better than anybody in the world. So I'm going to see him tonight and I'm on the phone with him. And he's killing this game. It's like one of the hardest video games in the world, right? He's killing it. And he's so passionate about it. And he's also an incredible drawer. And then when you read his short stories, how beautiful his poetry and his empathy. He's so kind and empathetic to others. And if he had turned out as a rapist or a serial killer, he would have been justified after what he went through as a kid. But here I look at this person who he's got like a little part-time job, he smokes a little dab, of wax every day to keep down his freaking horror in his head, and he plays his video games. And to me, He's one of the most successful people I've ever met.
Yeah.
Is that kid right there.
I get that. I get that. And I like your definition. But tell me, what are the things you did that helped you be successful, to keep doing what you're doing?
I think I'm just bullheaded, and I know that whether I get a record deal or not, I'm either going to play the street, I'm going to play a club, I'm going to play a bar, I'm going to play wherever I can play. And if I don't get to play the street, I'm going to play at home. So I think it's a bullheadedness. And then it's also being surrounded by people that are very, so they're better than who I am. So I'm a big believer in this. So whatever you're going to do in life, whether it be sobriety or having a strong, healthy body or a business that does well or having great friendships or a great marriage, you surround yourself with people that are better at it than you. And it forces you to rise to the occasion. You get a great influence. You get a great challenge. You keep that around you. And I remember when I was 19, I knew how fucked up I was. And I bought this book called The 7 Habits of Highly Effective People.
Yeah, right.
Highly Effective People. Yeah. By Stephen Covey.
Yeah.
And I didn't have any real education. So half the book, I didn't even understand it. But there were certain things I'd come across that it would talk about. Also, I read this book called The Tao of Leadership. And it's all based on Asian religion. And it said that if you want to master something, you study what someone else who is a master has done to the point where you can pretty much do it, and then you completely forget it, let it go, and have the balls to step out on your own. So those two things, I think, as a kid, made me really focused on that. You know, like surround yourself with people that are better than you at everything. And then also, whenever you're going to work your ass off to the point where you can do it like you wanted to do it, but then forget it and do it different and have the courage to step away from it and be a fool to fall, be willing to not do well.
Right on.
And those two things I think helped a lot. Oh, and then also in the Tao of Leadership, you know what I really love that I read? It said, be very wary of fame. Fame is a disease, and only those with the strongest immune systems can handle it. And I remember thinking then I could never handle fame. Never. I knew I couldn't. And that's one of the things I feel so lucky about. Like I can go anywhere and rarely do I get recognized. There's no paparazzi following me around. And usually when I do get recognized, it's not even me that gets recognized. It's Scott that's standing right next to me. And they're like, are you Beth Hart's husband? And I'm like right there. And I go, oh, I'm over here, motherfucker. So, you know, it's like, yeah, some people can handle it. Some people can't. I'm definitely one that couldn't handle it. No way.
I wanted to ask you, I had a question about that because I saw in an interview you said you're in a business where you're taught your image and the way people perceive you is important, but at some point you realize it's not important at all. Fame doesn't matter. People approving of you doesn't matter, and if it does matter, you're
fucked.
You're fucked. Yeah, basically. So I wanted to ask you, first of all, I agree 100% with what you said, whether it's music business or any business.
Yes.
What was the trigger that made you stop and realize that the things you thought mattered really don't matter, and that it was important for you to stop buying into that belief system? Because that's a great conclusion.
It was me almost dying during Screaming for My Supper. So I was starving myself to death because I thought that was when that whole waif heroin look was in. So I was starving. I would eat once a week, literally once a week, and then I'd throw it up after.
Oh my God.
I would take shitloads of Klonopin, which took away my appetite. And then also I was battling not allowing a pop career to happen. So even though I didn't want fame, I was also being so destructive. So it's the same spectrum. It's just on the other side. Either way, it's the same fear. So it's just on a different side of the spectrum.
Yeah.
So when the dust settled with that, my trauma specialist said to me, I don't think it's a good idea you do this anymore. I don't think you can handle it at all. I think you should just paint, because I've always loved to paint. And I thought about it. And then I went, you know what? I'm going to do this thing different. I'm going to take it slow. And when something is too much for me, I'm going to raise my hand and I'm going to say no. So when I went to get a new record deal, every single person I met with, because I had separate deals I got after the Atlantic being let go. So like I told you, I was with Warner's New Zealand, different labels, right? Every person that would approach or that we would shop to, I would let them know right away, A, I'm an addict, I'm in recovery. B, there's only so much work I can do. C, I cannot do promo and show tours simultaneously. So in terms of you getting the most you can and slave the shit out of me, I'm not the artist for you. So there were a lot of people I was very upfront with that said, okay, we're not going to sign you then. And I said, great.
Yeah,
and I waited until I would get with people that could understand my boundaries of what I could handle and what I couldn't. And that is something that I learned from screaming was you can't try and make everybody like you and approve of you, because if you do, it can kill you.
How did you pat on the back again to you for stepping up and taking care of yourself, because it's not easy. How did you start being kinder to yourself? Like that's not when you come from that trauma background, that is not an easy thing to do. And what's the most important thing you've learned from that?
Yeah. So I'm always going to struggle with that. Right. So I didn't stop my cutting until the last time I was in psych wards. My last psych ward were 2 back-to-back right after I'd finished the Better Than Home record. And I was doing a lot of cutting that would always end me up in psych ward. Or I would do meth early on in my years, or just be drunk. And then I'd cut and hurt myself in some way, or try and hang myself, or just do crazy stuff like that. So that would end me up in a lot of psych wards. So I just got tired of going to psych ward. So that's when I joined a church. I got sober through this pastor who is awesome. And it doesn't matter what religion it is. I'm not going to say, because I don't want, you know what I mean? It doesn't matter.
It's nobody's,
just,
it's not,
it's what
no one's
worked for
business.
me.
That's no one's business.
Right. But the thing that really made me stop doing my last abuse, which is I switched to brush beating, where I take a wooden thing and I just beat the shit out of myself with it. And I was doing that all through pandemic. And I was talking to my trauma specialist about it. And that's when he said, all right, I want you to start doing psychedelic mushroom therapy. I want you to microdose and macrodose. He goes, because your chronic PTSD is not going to allow you. Also, I have borderline personality disorder. So he said, these 2 illnesses are not illnesses that need medication, like psychotropic medication. They need therapy, and then they need natural herbs, vitamins. And it's been proven now, and the FDA is talking about legalizing specifically psychedelic mushrooms for people that come from chronic PTSD. So chronic PTSD and PTSD are 2 different things. PTSD is from one traumatic experience, whereas chronic PTSD is traumatic experiences over and over and over a period of years, right? So it's so deeply embedded that you're constantly being triggered. And when you're triggered, what do you want to do? You want to numb to get through it. So because, I'd gotten sober, I was using other things. Yeah. And the brush beating was my last thing. And so what he did to get me away from it was he had me get a 70-pound punching bag. Even though I've always loved to work out, he said, I want you to start using that punching bag, get yourself some gloves, some wrist wraps. And then I want you to start going to the gun range. And I started shooting guns too. And he goes, what that's going to do is, instead of you hurting yourself when you're feeling really stressed out, you're going to get it out on that bag, or you're going to get it out at the range. So I haven't done the range. I'm just doing the bag, and it's been great. But the mushroom therapy has been unbelievable. So right now I'm approaching 8 months of not doing any brush beating. That's great. So it's always a work in progress. It's a work in progress. And that's just the way it is. Yeah.
But that's okay. Yeah. Everybody's got something they're working on, or should be.
Yeah. Yeah. And then for those that don't have that, what's awesome is oftentimes people like that are out and helping others. Yeah. You know what I mean? So it's beautiful either way around. If you're struggling and trying to learn how to live and trying to survive, there are so many people out there that are healthy that want to help you. Or there are people that weren't healthy and learned how to get healthy that want to help you. They want to.
Definitely.
And reaching out for help is a good thing, because it's not just helping you, it's also helping the person who wants to help.
It is.
So it's a great thing all the way around.
But it's hard to do that when you come from like a background like that. It's just not. Yeah. I never asked for help, because that word help just wasn't in my lexicon. It wasn't like, oh, I'm such a badass. It's like, oh, people help you? Really?
Yeah, you don't feel worthy of it. Yeah. Right. Like you either don't trust it or you don't feel worthy to be helped.
Right. Either way, it's not a good deal.
Right. I know.
All righty. So I want to ask you about some of your music. Do you have a favorite song that you wrote?
Yeah, it would probably be Sky Full of Clover. I'd written that when I was 23, but it didn't end up making it to a record until I was 29. A record called Leave the Light On. But it's a song about God. It's a song about, you know, that's something bigger and better that loves you unconditionally, no matter how much you might hate yourself, how much you might down yourself, has got your back and has created you for a reason, just the way you are, no matter how you are. And that's the Sky Full of Clover, is knowing that that thing has you unconditionally.
Do you have a favorite song to perform or sing?
I really love singing songs when I'm alone at the piano, because that's when it's my confessional part of the show, and that makes me feel very safe. Because the piano's always been like the hand of God to me,
Hand
like
of
when I was
God,
a little
yeah.
girl.
Yeah, that's cool, I thought.
Yeah, so that's when I get to kind of talk about not only addiction, but also about molestation, even though I don't mention that word because I think that's too heavy for the audience. I can't use the audience as my therapist, but I do a song called Woman Down that's about that. I also talk about, spirituality. Like I got a song called Saint Teresa that I wrote about Mother Teresa when she made a quote, and her quote was, the definition of grace is when you help and you love somebody that you think doesn't deserve help, that you think doesn't deserve love, and you do it anyway. And that made me write that song for her. And then like my husband, my husband's been just so unbelievable. He asked me to marry him in freaking rehab. Who asked somebody to marry him in rehab? You know what I mean? So
that is a little chance taking a gamble. Yeah.
I know, man. Even my own friends was like, why is he going out with you? I know. I said, dude, why are you here? Why? And he's like, well, A, if you had your shit totally together, I'd be bored out of my mind. And B, I see behind all that trauma and addiction and all that big front tough girl you put up is a sweetheart behind there. There's a little angel back there. And he goes, and that's who I'm in love with. And even your little tough girl that you put out on the front, he goes, I think she's hysterical. He goes, so I just love all of you.
That's cool.
All right. That's cool, man.
Beth, do you have a worst gig ever story?
The worst gig ever story. Bad gigs for me are when I get stuck in my own ego. So that means like when I get out there, I think they hate the show, that the audience is sitting there going, Jesus, why did I spend this money to come to this show? I can't wait to leave. I hope it's over soon. And I don't want to walk out because I don't want to hurt her feelings. And so I feel like I'm really letting people down. I'm letting down the band and I can't shake it off. So usually what I do when that happens is I stop looking at the audience as humans and I start looking at it as the devil trying to come in and make me hate myself and doubt myself and build up all this ego and make me very self-centered. So I become defiant. And that's when I usually tell the band to leave. And then I'll go to the piano for like an hour of the show. And I'll just confess. And that's my way of showing the devil he's not as doubtful as I am. I'm still going to tell the truth. I'm still going to tell on myself. And so those are tough gigs. But sometimes, when the road is not easy, that's the best road you can be on. That's where you get to fight. Yeah.
You must be exhausted after a gig like that.
No, not exhausted actually. It's weird. It's like I don't ever really feel tired after shows. I get a lot of energy after a show. When I tend to get tired is when I tend to not be grateful. So when I start being like, oh my God, I'm working too much, I missed the garden, or I'm not spending enough time on the phone with my friends, or I'm not cooking enough meals and cleaning my husband's laundry, like being a wife to my husband, because he's always doing everything for me. So when I'm too much on the road and I start getting resentful, that's when I get tired. So like remaining in a state of gratitude is really important for my energy and health.
Right. But you seem like both on when we've been talking and off when you're like extremely grateful.
Oh,
I mean,
I try and be, man.
Like that's what you lead with, to be, yeah.
Yeah, but I talk about it because my natural way is to not be grateful. My natural way is to be very judgmental. Yeah. And my natural way is to be very vicious on myself as well as others. I have a lot of fear and distrust for others. So thankfully I see that. So I get to work on it. And then I get to surround myself with people that aren't that way, that encourage me to go into the direction of the light instead of sitting in the dark and feeling sorry for myself and doing all that. And there's nothing wrong with having remorse for yourself and crying for yourself, especially if you've been through a lot of trauma. But you can get addicted to that. And getting addicted to that, that's it. You're in the dark. And that's no way to live.
Well, I don't think you're in the dark, for whatever that's worth. You seem like you're working pretty hard, man.
Thanks, man.
Tell me your top 3 desert island discs, just for this moment, because that.
Wait, top 3 desert island what?
Discs, like top 3 favorite albums.
Oh, so like if I went to a desert island and I could only bring 3 albums?
Yeah, right.
Okay, right. So I would bring Blues in the Night, the early show. It's a live album, Etta James, freaking believable. She's probably like somewhere in her mid 40s, early 40s. So she's away from those white producers trying to get her on radio. She's totally herself. Her band is phenomenal. She's got Shiggy Ray Otis, Red Holloway. She's got some of the best musicians, and they're playing probably in front of about 65 people. They're just in a tiny place. And They do 2 shows that night. There's the early show and then there's the late show. But the early show, wow, you just hear her in her prime. Blues. And then it would be Beethoven's piano sonatas for sure. I would bring that. And then I would probably bring, there's so many artists I love and adore so much, like freaking Steel Pulse and freaking Black Sabbath and so many songwriters like James Taylor and Carole King and Ricky Lee Jones and then Leonard Cohen and Tom Waits. But if I had one other one to choose, man, I would probably bring oh God, it's so hard to say, but
the third one is just the worst.
I know. It's so many good ones. It would probably have to be, it's a live performance of Billie Holiday with one of the greatest orchestral leaders in orchestras, and it's called Gloomy Sunday, and it is remarkable. The playing is remarkable. Of course, the songwriting is, back in those days, just the highest bar of writing, but you're listening to one of the greatest phrasers ever in jazz, ever. And not just a back phraser, she's a double back phraser. Right. And then it's all emotion and feeling. So I would probably go with those 3.
Thanks. I'm going to check out number 1 and number 3 for sure.
Okay.
All right. So tell me something you want that you don't have now. It could be something tangible, or it could be like an outlook or a mindset, whatever.
Oh boy, it's going to make me cry. I think I want to not want anymore. That's what I want.
Wow. That's a pretty cool answer.
Well, it's just that I've been given so much in life. I mean, we're surrounded by everything,
Yeah.
I don't live in a refugee camp. I'm not fucking homeless. You know what I'm saying?
No, I know exactly what you're saying. That's I want to not want anymore.
Yeah.
Wow, that's pretty profound. That's the best.
That would be that'd be a nice thing.
Question I've ever heard. Oh, this is going to be interesting. Has your life been different than what you imagined?
No.
Really?
Yeah.
Okay, tell me about this. This is really interesting.
So as a kid, even though I wasn't raised religious, with all the shit I was going through, I was always talking to God. And then all my favorite artists and people were people that I saw dealing with a lot of trauma. So like Van Gogh, Beethoven, Nina Simone, Martin Luther King, Mandela, JFK, Jesus, learning about the Buddha and what he went through. Gandhi, Lenin, you know, fucking fighting for peace and getting assassinated, you know,
Right.
Lincoln getting assassinated, trying to free the slaves, you know? So I would look at these heroes and I'd look at how much they'd go through. And I was aware as a kid that what was going on was so fucking wrong, right? So I remember thinking, I know God is going to give me one because he's already given me music. And music isn't enough. I need love with another human being. I need to believe in love with another human being. And I didn't believe in love with anybody, you know? My brother, love my brother, but even that, it was so hard to just trust any kind of human being. And I did believe one day I would find a family. And I think that also had to do with in school, every school I went to, because I was always getting kicked out of school. So every school I went to, all the principals made me have a school counselor. So one of those periods each day I had to be for an hour with a school counselor. And I remember each counselor, when I would talk to them about what was going on at home and in my life, they would say to me, don't worry about having to have children. Because I said, I don't believe in childhood. I'm never going to have children. I'm never going to get married. Never. And they'd say, it's okay. You can make your own family another way. You can have your own family. And then I remember I was talking to God. And then one day when I saw my mom get stuck by my sister Sharon's, one of her hypodermic needles, and my sister Sharon had AIDS, I thought, well, that's it. My mom's got AIDS. And I was in the 11th grade and I went to the principal who I loved. And I told the principal and I said, I'm done with school. I'm done. And the principal said, I don't blame you. And I'm not going to put you down as a dropout. I'm going to transfer you into reality world, but I want you to start praying to God. And I said, frick God. I stopped talking to God. I don't talk to him anymore. And she said, I get it. I understand. But at some point, give it a try, because he or she or whatever you want to call it will show you the way. You'll find your way, but you're going to need something that's not human that you can lean on. And that was her suggestion. And yeah, and she put me into reality world, and I went to reality world for 3 months until the math got hard. And I'm like, bye, I'm out of here. But I was never officially put down as a dropout. So yeah.
Wow.
Yeah.
Have you ever reached out to that principal? Because she sounds like one of those.
No, and I'm sure she wouldn't want me to.
But that sounds like, one of those interactions that, things could have gone totally differently. And, having somebody had a little compassion and understanding was.
Oh, man, all my principals did. All my principals, every school I went to. I loved my principals, man. And I was always in the principal's office, always. But I loved them. They were so compassionate and cool. And I would always be in cello too. So I'd always be in orchestra, whatever school I was at. And then all the orchestral, conductors of our classes, they were pretty cool too. I remember Mr. White at one of the schools, Glendale High. He said, Beth, you're either going to be a successful artist or you're going to go to prison, because it's up to you to work out what you want to do. And I loved him. I loved Mr. White. He was great.
That's funny. You're going to be a successful. I'm going to write that down. That was great. That's hilarious. You're going to be a successful artist or you're going to prison. I think that might be your quote that I use for this. That's really funny.
Oh my God.
Toughest decision you had to make or most difficult thing you had to do?
I had to let go of my mother. I had to stop supporting the bullshit. And that happened during pandemic. I had to wake up and stop. That was the toughest by far.
You know what? I just as an aside, you have, like, every question I ask you, you have really given a lot of thought. This is very kind of you. I thank you.
Oh, you're welcome, man. Hey, don't let nothing go in vain. You know what I'm saying? My life doesn't mean nothing if I don't share it with others. Just like when people share their shit and stuff they go through and they're honest about it, I am so honored by that, because I get to A, learn, B, not feel alone.
Yeah, that's how I feel. Thank you. I feel the same exact way. I really thank you. Just a few more questions. Tell me most fun thing you've done.
Have sex with Scott.
Right on.
He's a bad motherfucker. He's a badass.
Oh,
6'5",
that's
the
so
size
funny.
of a refrigerator back.
Oh my
Blonde,
God.
Swedish and Native American biker. No freaking ego.
You're almost on
Protective.
you're almost on too much information, but I feel
man,
you.
He's a badass.
Have sex with Scott. That's
yeah.
hilarious. That's awesome.
He's awesome.
Biggest change in your personality over the last 10 years, and how much of that has been intentional and how much is a part of aging?
Yeah, biggest change by far is getting off the antipsychotics. I was misdiagnosed as a bipolar 1, which is very common for people who have borderline personality disorder. So very commonly, people with borderline get misdiagnosed as a bipolar 1 because they have rapid emotional changes. So, and they're usually called an ultradian cycler bipolar 1. So they had me on a lot of unnecessary medication, because with borderline, any of the DSM, which is the personality disorders, none of those need actual medication. What they need is a lot of trauma therapy, a lot of work, having a therapist who basically stays with you and guides you, and you got to get a good one. And then they teach you a lot of natural things that decompress. So the only real medication I take is Lamictal, which is a mood stabilizer. It has no organ failure effects. It does have one very dangerous thing, though, and that's usually in the first 15 months. You can get a rash, which can turn into skin death, which ultimately kills you. But if you get the rash, they pull you off it. Okay. Otherwise, you are good with any kind of effects with organs and all that kind of thing. That's what's great about Lamictal. But I was on antipsychotics for a long time, and that just totally compressed everything. That's why I could deal with, my mom and a lot of other kind of narcissistic personalities like that, is that I just didn't feel anything about it. So once I got off, and I had to get off of it because I was having a lot of organ damage, and I've got some things now that are permanently damaged. But that's okay. I'm dealing with it. And so because of that, I had to slowly come off that medicine, very slowly, 3 years. Wow. And then in the first year of pandemic, I was finally able to completely come off it, and then go through the heart. The heart flips out, and I had to go on beta blockers. But once I got all that out of my system, I came back to life. But so did all my early trauma come back to life too. So that was when I had to start doing the work with Appleton again on a whole nother level. Right. And so, yeah, I feel I'm awake again. I notice it on stage. I tell a lot more stories. But it's that I have a feeling of value of myself that I didn't have before. And so, in other words, if someone likes me, cool. If someone doesn't like me, cool. Cool, yeah. Either way, it doesn't define me. Yeah.
Wow. I'm really happy to hear that for you. That's Thanks. Really good. Yeah, you sound like that was a massive thing for you. I'm glad.
Yeah, that was a massive thing right there. Yeah. And if that change hadn't happened, I don't think that I would have lived much longer. I think because, I was smoking shitloads of cigarettes, and I was approaching 50, and it's like, what the fuck am I doing? Yeah. Come on, get off this medicine, quit smoking, and get your shit together. Live.
You quit smoking cigarettes?
Oh yeah, I'm done.
Did you really?
That's why I have this. It's just a bamboo straw. And so my husband goes around the neighborhood and cuts down bamboo, and he cuts these down. And so they have a hole in them, and then he bakes them in the oven, and I just get to suck fresh air through it. And then I got my nicotine patch, the Lord uses, which I'll be buried with. And then I have my gum, which I'll also be buried with.
I'll be buried with.
And this will be taped to my mouth, and I'm going out Egyptian style. So yeah, I'm always going to be on nicotine. My God, I love nicotine. It keeps me from feeling depressed. But it was the smoking in my lungs. I just couldn't take it anymore. I couldn't breathe.
That's a very hard thing to quit smoking. Good for you. Holy
This
shit.
one wasn't hard, though. It wasn't hard. And I'd quit a lot of times before, but I really think this was God, dude. Check this story out, man. I woke up in the morning. Anyone who would ever ask me about quitting smoking again, I'm like, no way. I don't care. I know I'm going to die from it. I don't care.
You said that on interviews. When I prepped for our conversation, I watched a bunch of interviews, and that was like, you're like, yeah, I love my cigarettes.
Yeah, I love cigarettes. And I'd always say, if I quit smoking, I go into psych ward. So I don't want to go into psych ward, never quitting smoking again. So I'm at the dentist's office, and I'd had a few cigarettes that morning. And I love my dentist, Dr. Frida. She's badass. And she goes, Beth, you've got this really bad infection here. And if you keep smoking, it's never going to heal. And I looked at Frida and I go, Frida, do you want me to go into psych ward? And she starts rolling her eyes. I said, don't you know people like me? We have to smoke. You know, I'm just full of shit, right? She goes, okay. All right. Okay, I'm not going to talk to you about it anymore. Please, you're so boring, Beth. I say, thank you. Thank you. So she finishes working on my mouth. I leave, and I just didn't smoke again. I just said to Scott, I was just done.
Good for you. That's awesome.
Yeah, it was like a gift.
Yeah, you must feel so good.
Dude, I feel so much better, man. I can breathe. I don't have to do an inhaler, you know, a steroid inhaler or a freaking dilating inhaler. That's what I ended up having to do just to smoke, was use an inhaler.
Yeah, that's like, not a good trade.
No.
Wow.
Yeah.
And, man, I could talk to you forever, but this is actually the last question. What's the most important lesson that life has taught you?
So Tony Bennett's got a really great quote, and I want to just throw that quote out. He said, if you can live life long enough, life will teach you how to live it. I love that quote. I really love that quote. If you can survive, you know, whatever kind of fighter you have in you, you fight, you stay alive, and life will teach you how to live it.
That is a great quote.
Yeah, it's Tony Bennett's a badass.
Hey, we're a tribute to Led Zeppelin. Just talk about that. It's your latest record.
Yeah. So what a healing experience that was for me, man, because I was angry when pandemic hit and everybody was out there fighting for their equality. And then you had people saying there was no such thing as inequality. And then different world leaders just acting like assholes and just the whole thing, man. And then terrified. I was going to get sick. My husband was going to get sick. Wolf, my manager, he's 72. And I'm thinking, that's it. We're all going to die. And I was just so freaked out. And my mechanism for dealing for when I get really scared is I get really angry. And so I had the opportunity to work on hard rock. And even though Led Zeppelin's lyrics are not based in anger at all, but you have Plant talking about war. He likes his Vikings. He likes that kind of thing. He loves women. I love women. And then you've got the masterpieces of the dynamics of how Page would write. So he'd mix like American black blues, early blues, with the European white classical writers like Rachmaninoff and Beethoven and those kind of guys. And you can hear the blend of it. And so here I am hearing two forms of music blended together with hard rock on top of that. And I'm in La La Land and I can really express myself. Because to me as a kid, I loved opera and classical music so much because it's violent. You know, you go from really gentle to all of a sudden extreme. And so it was like a representation of my extreme moods and my swings. So that's what I loved about classical. And then with rock and roll, especially with the grunge, when you had early 90s, you would have those real soft, quiet verses. And then they'd hit you in the head with a shotgun of a chorus. So that kind of thing. I like those extremes like that. And Led Zeppelin also has that. So it was really cool to get that out when we were in lockdown. And I didn't get to be in the studio with Rob like I was when he produced War in My Mind, my record. It was lockdown. So my husband, you know, they had trucks pull up and my husband loaded in the equipment into my studio, which is not a recording studio. It's just for writing and rehearsals and that kind of thing. So they set it up, or Scott set it up. And then I had Rob Cavallo on Zoom for his studio. And then I had Doug, the engineer, in his studio on Zoom. And then I just sang to the tracks that had already been recorded. But the tracks were only classical 88-piece orchestra.
Wow.
There was no hard guitars, drums, all that yet, because that whole thing had originally been done, not for me to do, but for a Broadway show that Rob was working on. And then it got canceled. It fell through. So when Rob was working with me on War in My Mind, he goes, hey, I know you know this song called Whole Lotta Love. I've seen you do it for your Live at the Paradiso years ago. Would you mind throwing down a quick vocal while you're in the control room? And I said, sure. And I laid down a vocal to it. It was the only Led Zeppelin song I knew. And then I looked over to see if he was happy with that. And he was filming. And he goes, do me one more favor, do it again. And so I laid it down again. And he said, cool. And we didn't have any discussion. I went out, promoted, and toured one tour for War in My Mind. And then pandemic hit. And then I got the call to be asked to do the record. And I said no, because I didn't feel that angry yet. And I didn't think to do it. And I didn't want Led Zeppelin fans to shoot me on the street in case I screwed it up, right? So I had a lot of reasons to say no. And then when everything started happening, that's when I said, hey, can you just send me everything live on Zeppelin, all their albums, and then all the orchestrations that you've done already. And then anyway, we recorded it, the vocals, and then Rob, when the thing lifted, pandemic quarantine lifted, we got to go to Rob's house, his studio there, and he played for me Babe. And he knew that that was one of my favorites because it reminds me of my dad when my dad left as a kid, and I worship the ground my dad walks on. So he played that, and it had drums in the front and electric guitars and bass. And, you know, Chris Chaney killing it on bass, you know, Stephen Pierce freaking killing it on guitar, Rob playing his acoustic guitar, Matt Logg playing drums on Stairway to Heaven, but then badass Dave Crozier. Okay, so this guy, I don't even call him by his name. I just call him Bad Motherfucker. That's what I call him. His drumming was so phenomenal on that record. And everything was to the forefront. And then Rob pushed all the strings to the back. And I just fell on my knees. I'm a bit of a drama queen. Fell on my knees, and I kissed Rob's knee. And I just said, you know, dude, thank you so much, man. Because Rob is just the shit. And everybody involved in that, you know. And I just felt like, I don't know, I felt lucky that I got to be a part of that music, you know, healing and humbling and just brilliant, brilliant. Led Zeppelin is brilliant. Brilliant.
Yeah. You did a great job on those tracks too.
Man, Rob Cavallo killed it, man. And he was scared too. He was like, this is hollowed ground. Oh my God. And I love how much Rob Cavallo cares so much. And I think that's why he's one of the, you know, the greatest producers of all time. He just cares so much. He has no ego. And if he does, I don't ever see it. He just cares. And he puts a lot of work into it. Yeah.
So you're on tour now, or getting ready to go back out again soon. How much of these tracks make it into the current tour, and like, what is your current tour like?
Yeah. So every night I change up the show. So my band
Every
will
night.
tour.
Wow.
Yeah. So they know like all the original records, and then they know also the cover records I've done with Joe. So we always mix that up night to night, because I don't want us to get complacent and bored. So It's really important to me to always kind of keep us on our toes. And I also like to, some people follow a lot of the same shows. So I want to mix it up for them, but also for us as musicians, just to keep us challenged. And then I also do a thing where I'll throw out, before even rehearsing it, hey, tonight, we're going to do this song instead of electric. We're going to do it acoustic. So we have a part in the show where everybody gets off of all their electric, and we move everyone to the front, and we put Bill on percussion, Johnny on classical guitar, and we put Tommy on upright bass. So we go all acoustic with things. So I like to switch that up. But with the last tour we did for the US, we open with either just the levy, and then we go into No Quarter, into the medley of Babe.
Right.
Or we open up with Dancing Days into the levy, and then we go into No Quarter and into Babe. And that way we do Zeppelin first, out of respect. That's the record. And then we move into the rest of the stuff that we do.
Yeah, No Quarter is one of the greatest songs ever recorded in the history of rock and roll. Yeah, I mean,
I couldn't believe it. When I first heard that, because I'm addicted to gardening, I just remember being in the garden all day, playing it over and over. I couldn't believe how beautiful. And I didn't know John Paul Jones wrote it. And I didn't know that John Paul Jones knew how to play keyboard.
Oh,
That's how little I knew about Zeppelin.
Yeah,
you know,
it's such a great track. I remember seeing the movie as a kid when that came out. That was just blew me away. Well, that's awesome. What can I promote to support you? Tell me. I mean, I can't thank you. I'm so glad I got to talk with you. You've been beyond wonderful. You're very kind. You've been extremely thoughtful. And I'm looking forward to seeing you when you come here to Tampa next month. But
you're such a sweetheart, man. Thank you.
No, are you kidding? Thank you. What would you like people to do? Where can people go to support you? You know, if somebody wants to buy the music, what's the best place to buy it? Bandcamp? For you?
I have no idea.
All right. Just download and stream and buy all of Beth's stuff. And I would encourage everybody, if you're not familiar with Beth's music, I went through her entire catalog prepping to this, and now I have a Beth Hart playlist because she's really awesome. I mean, thank
you, man.
She's got soul, man. You lay shit down. I mean, you're not leaving. I mean, it's
I've had a lot of great people I got to work with. I can't take all the credit, man. I had a lot
but you're doing
great people to work with.
Yeah,
I've been very lucky.
I hear you, but you're just like I'm glad I got to connect with you. Social media, follow Beth. You know, I'm not really a big social media guy. I'm like showing my age here. You know, just get all the socials and follow her. And where's your tour going? You're going to be all over the States
We're going to do another U.S. run. The last one was about 6 weeks. This one's only 4. And then we get back for 3 weeks, and we head over to Europe just for 1 week. And then we have a break for a few weeks, and then we're going to do a real length tour of Europe. And, you know, I do want to say a shout out, though, to Russia and Ukraine, because obviously we know what's going on with that whole bullshit thing. And I love the Russian people so much, and I love the Ukrainian people so much. And we go there every year. We have 4 years. And, you know, mad prayers, you know, for everybody involved. It's just unbelievable. And we know that war is horrifying no matter where it takes place, but definitely say some serious prayers, man, for what's going on over there. It's unbelievable.
It's terrible. I know that there's war in 2022. It makes no sense. No sense at all, man. All right, I'm going to wrap up. Stay on the line so you and I can talk for a minute afterwards, all right? I want to thank you again from the bottom of my heart. You've been wonderful, and I really appreciate it.
You're a doll, man. Love you, man. You're so cool. Thank you.
Thanks. I'll tell my kids that. Everybody, thank you so much for listening. If you enjoyed this, share it on your socials. Thanks very much to Beth Hart for everything. You're like just the best, a real trooper. Please listen to all Beth's music. That's what I would love everybody to do. She is incredibly, incredibly talented and a great songwriter and extremely passionate about her music and about everything she does, actually.
Not really, but I appreciate the
And most important, remember that happiness is a choice, so choose wisely.
Boom.
Be nice, right?
Love
right on,
that.
right? I've closed every show with that.
Choice.
It is.
Love
man.
that, dude.
It is, man.
It's a good one.
Be nice and have fun. Till next time, peace and love, everybody. I am out. Beth, you are the best. Thanks so much.
You are the shit.